So today we're going to be talking about the Sig P320 interview that Phil Strader just did with a military arms channel. You guys can see for yourself on what Sig is doing to combat the P320 negligent discharges and holsters. Let's get right into this. So I watched the full interview through and through. Obviously, I'm going to sweeten it up for you guys and shorten it up for you guys so we don't have to watch the entire 53 minutes of this. But I will link the video down in the description below so you guys can watch the full thing yourself and make your own assumptions. So again, shout out to Military Arms Channel for sitting down with Sig. Let's get right into this.
Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out at Sig in New Hampshire, and we want to have a conversation with Phil Strader here.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about the Sig P320. And I'm sure many of you watching this video are familiar with some of the controversies going on with the P320. I just wanted to let you guys know up front, I'm not here to defend the handgun. I'm not here to condemn the handgun. I'm here for informational purposes. And Phil is going to help us get to the bottom of Sig's position on all the controversies that are going on. As you can see, we have a number of Sig products sit out here on the table. We're going to talk about some of the videos that have been circulating social media about discharges with the P320 and things like that. And Phil, I want to thank you for being so open. In this trip, we've seen the testing that the pistols are subjected to, and we've seen the manufacturing, the quality assurance steps, and it's all been quite informative for me because it's really, truly interesting, as you know. I've traveled the world, seen a bunch of different factories, and yeah, it's truly impressive.
This video really doesn't pick up until about 15 minutes into it. I'm going to fast forward 15 minutes. You guys can see for yourself.
So my next question will lead into what's currently being discussed right now on the internet, and that is the P320 claims being that the gun fires uncommanded. And for folks that don't know what that means, it means without physically pulling the trigger.
Right.
We've seen posts, we've seen videos out there where guns have been claimed to have fired themselves in holsters. I think some of those were in law enforcement circles. One I remember watching, I believe there's an officer doing something in a building and he was kind of bent over and the gun pops.
Montville PD, yes.
Okay,
Montville,
so I've seen that. I'm sure many of the people watching this video have seen that. What was going on with that? And the result of that is that there are lawsuits out there people are talking about. And so, you know, the nature of the lawsuits, I presume, are related to uncommanded firing, or
That's what a lot of the lawsuits are based on, is the fact that uncommanded firing caused either the gun to fire or caused an injury. So
there's been quite a few lawsuits that I've looked into, and I'm going to put them up on the screen here. You guys can see for yourself. There's been numerous times where Sig lost in lawsuits due to NDs or ADs, however you guys want to put it, against the P320. In my opinion, strictly my opinion, if you lose a court case because of a negligent discharge against Sig, I feel like that's a Sig problem. That's not a person problem. That's not a holster problem. That is a Sig problem at the end of the day. Just my 2 cents. We'll continue with this though.
So that's what a lot of the claims are, yes.
okay, and so what is your response to that? I want to know what your position is on that, and you know, what testing have you done? You know, what investigative stuff have you done, and where are you guys at with that currently?
So I'm glad you asked. So this is the question everyone's been asking. Is first, I can stand here and tell you that the guns cannot fire without a trigger pull. And the reason I'm able to say that is because we, along with a number of major police departments and agencies, and as it turns out, a lot of these attorneys and their companies who are attacking the firearm and attacking us, their experts have all come to the same conclusion that they cannot replicate any of these events. And it's funny we mention replicate as in they can't make the gun fire unless the trigger is pulled. Down to make it make sense for you, I've brought a number of guns and holsters out here. And namely, one of our guns, this is actually the Australian Defence pistol setup with a light, an optic. And this is one of my personal guns, my Glock 45.
So a Sig representative personal gun is a Glock 45.
Okay. Which, if you're your viewers aren't familiar with, it's a basically a Glock 19 length slide and a Glock 17 size grip. So it's like a carry Glock 17.
Right.
But they're doing away with all the
like a 19X, but black.
Right. Exactly right.
Not flat darker.
And I've actually added my personal light here. And this is an example of a holster. This is actually an example of a holster I used to carry. It is from a very, very well-known and very reputable holster company, and they're great. And I like their products, and I used to carry them all the time. And one of the upgrades that a lot of law enforcement officers are putting on their guns are weapon lights. Now, obviously, as weapon lights have improved, they've become smaller with the same amount of lumens, but this is a very popular model. This is the Surefire X300. And because of the light and because of how it has to fit in the holster, there's always an opening in the holster that will allow for, the light to fit in it. And this is the right holster.
The lights are bigger
this
than
is before the days where they were Glock 45s.
gun.
You see it's a Glock 19/23 holster, and it fits in just like so. I'll do one more clear and check just so we don't get beat up on the internet, but clear and safe.
Oh, that's going to happen anyway.
That's going to happen.
Oh, trust me. Hey, trust me, this is great. So we're going to put the gun in the holster. You can see it locks in. It's perfectly set up for this type of holster. Now, what you will notice is the gap between the body of the trigger.
Which I carry a Glock 43X, and mine has the same thing. I use a We the People holster because I inside the waistband carry, and my gun has the same exact thing. However, we'll let him finish.
Body of the holster
I'll explain this to
and
you
the
guys
side of the
as well.
trigger guard. And
I can get a finger in there.
yeah, fingers are. It happens. It would be safe to say that it is quite easy to get a trigger in there and pull it. And I've got big meat hooks hands, but in the case of, let's say, things on officers' belts or seat belts or that kind of thing, or keys, for a key to find its way in there and to pull the trigger is it's not impossible, right? It can happen.
But he's using it
just
with
by
force.
keep pulling in, pulling
As you
up,
just saw,
and it's
there's
funny
some
if you watch the
force
video.
there.
It just
that we
went
see.
click, folks.
Did it? Well, let's see. Well, there's a trigger.
Yeah, you can see
Trigger's
the trigger
back
to the rear.
So it's not hard it's not impossible for that to happen. Of course, the
This
larger
lady
the
is
opening of the holster is
shaking
compared to
to put that
the
much
trigger guard,
force
the
in between, and to
chance
do
of that
that.
happening go up.
There was some
The
force
biggest
there.
part of this that's kind of revolutionary.
So, like I was saying, my gun is empty. There's nothing in the chamber. There's no magazine, and it is cocked. In my holster, I've carried this gun for years. I love this gun. It takes an awful lot. I have big ass fingers, but it would take like an awful lot to get something in there. I'm not saying it's not impossible, but it would take a lot. Can I see a key happening? I can't see that. I don't think that's even a thing. And I'm going to touch base on that more here in a second. But it would take an awful lot to pull that trigger. Now, can a knife get in there and do it? Probably. But I'm not going to mess up my holster or my gun. Now, how often do you have dangly bits around your trigger, knowing full well there's one in the chamber and this is a possibility? I call boy. He said seatbelts. Get the fuck out of here. You know how big a seatbelt is? It's not going to fit in the trigger well regardless. Sorry, I call bullshit.
It's right here. This little floppy piece on the bottom, Titrel, and what this material does is it blocks finger ingress. We have incidents all the time where someone is wearing a holster, especially on duty, and there's an object, maybe it's a seatbelt buckle, maybe it's a finger, gets in between the sidewall of the holster.
What we saw, which in this case for the Montville PD, is we noticed that on the
A
front of every
handcuff key,
officer's
maybe because it has
belt,
a hook
they have
on
their
it.
keys hanging off the front of their belt keepers, which in their defense, I also did the same thing. I carried my keys in the front for my cruiser when I was a police officer. Because we had belt keepers, that's kind of what we used them for. And in the case of the Montville PD, they had either a 6300 series holster or maybe even a 7300 series holster. And this is a slightly newer version. Again, this is clear and safe. clear and safe, no magazine inserted, and this is a newer version of said holster. And again, this doesn't close. It's made for a different optic, but you get the idea. It's locked in. It can't go anywhere. But this one, you can actually see it's slightly better. You know, the gap's still there.
Yeah.
But you know, and to get a finger in there, you'd have to have.
You have to bend
You
the
could
plastic a
probably
bit.
do it if you pushed hard enough. But when the officer was bending over to pick up the person's feet, you notice as he stands up, if you notice and slow the video down, he actually bumps into the officer to his right, who is holding the suspect's arm, the suspect's left arm. He actually bumps into him on the way up with his holster, up with his body, and
Bro,
the key on the
no
officer
fucking
to
way.
his right, his key was up here on the left side. And if you notice them
No
bump
fucking
in,
way.
what I think happened, and what would make sense for a trigger activation in the holster, is when he was bending over, the key of that officer went into the holster, and as he stood up with the gun, the key twisted into it, and as he stood up and made the gun fire.
I'm sorry. It reminds me of those circus games where you're trying to fish with magnets on it. No, there's no fucking way, bro. What? Is it a possibility? Maybe. Could it? I guess, but the chances of that happening. So is Sig coming out saying that it's a holster issue? Let's be honest. If it was a holster issue, he would have brought holsters to this interview. Is that what Sig is coming out saying, that all P320 is going off? Not 365s, not P220s. No other Sig pistols are having these holster issues, but strictly the Sig Sauer P320 are only going off because of holsters? Because that's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like this is a shitty ass interview, and he's blaming holsters. So, if that were the case, if it's a holster issue, then it would go off with any gun, any manufacturer, any model of P320, any model of Sig, regardless. Is that what's being said? Let's continue to listen.
I've never seen that demonstrated before.
That's not hard to do.
That's
literally
a
just
bit
dropping it
unnerving.
in and pulling it. People know, the general public knows what happens to a company when a major military contract, especially for the handgun, we know what happens to that company's success and that company's base model. We saw the same thing with the M9 and the Beretta 92.
We did. Slide separations,
Right.
everything.
But you know as well as I do, no one had heard of Beretta 92 until the M9 contract was won. I mean, then you saw them everywhere. And the P320's popularity grew because of the M17 and M18 wins. And more police departments were finding that their officers shot better with our guns because the grip angle and the trigger was better, and it was just a better, more accurate, inherently better accurate gun to shoot. And they became more prevalent. They started seeing them in more hands, and more police officers, more end users. And it's just a math fact that the more guns you put out there, more guns you put in people's hands, there's the chances of negligent gun handling or holster intrusions. They started seeing them in more hands, and more police officers, more end users. And it's just a math fact that the more guns you put out there, more guns you put in people's hands, there's the chances of negligent gun handling or holster intrusions, incidents, that kind of thing, they're going to go up.
We're gonna touch base on that here again in a second, because I am curious. I'm gonna run the numbers for you guys here in a minute, but I'm curious what he means by that. You heard it here first. We're gonna touch base on that here in a second.
And you know, it was inevitable. It's just people are going to mishandle their firearms, or things are going to happen, get into holsters, and as you put more out there, it's just mathematics. It's going to happen at some point, and I think that's why you're seeing it more with 320. Plus, let's face it, the 320 is very popular, and it's easier to kind of place blame on a system than it is to place blame on gun handling. Of the 14 or so negligent discharges that I helped investigate with the other platforms that we were carrying, it was always blamed on the gun. And we did the same exact test with those systems, and we always found out that it was just the gun handling. It was a gun handling thing. So You know, I think the more and more you see of them out there, and the more hands that people get on them, we can't account for how much training or how much experience that people have. We just don't know that answer, and it's that way with any firearm we produce.
How many P320s have you produced? Guesstimate.
Guess it'd be over 3.5 million.
Okay.
Over
3.5 million P320s. That came from Sig Sauer himself. That came from Phil Strader himself with Sig Sauer, speaking on behalf of Sig. 3.5 million in circulation. And we're having so many negligent discharges because of holsters or mishandling. Let's break those numbers down realistically. And he said himself, it's mathematically correct that the more guns get put in hands, you're going to have more issues. Okay, let's speak on Glock. I'm not a Glock fanboy. I do carry a Glock, and I like my Glock, but I also carry other weapons. Speaking of Glock, the Glock 19 has right around 20 million sold. 20 million, so 6 times more. So going based off what Phil Strader with Sig Sauer is saying, we should be seeing 6 times more NDs or ADs or unconfirmed fires, discharges, whatever, 6 times more than Sig, because mathematics, right? We're not seeing that. So again, this is a fucking Sig issue, not a Glock issue, not a holster issue. This is a fucking Sig issue. Make that make sense. 6 times more guns. Glock 19s. Nah, I'm not seeing the mathematics there, bud. Math ain't mathin'. Just my opinion. Now, speaking on this, do not load a cartridge into the chamber.
Which is not arguable. Look, if you don't have experience carrying a firearm, if you're not fully confident in your ability to the number one rule, keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire, then maybe an empty chamber is the way you maybe should be carrying if you're going to.
Here's the thing, and I got a lot to say about this. I carry my gun with one in the chamber because if I have to use my weapon in a self-defense situation to protect me or my family, I'm not going to have that split-second time to pull my weapon and then rack around and then get into the business. And here's the thing. If you are so unfamiliar with your gun that you do not keep one in the chamber, go do some fucking training and become familiarized with it, or do not carry a weapon. This is legal wording. I guarantee you this wording is on all manufacturers. I can almost guarantee that. I haven't looked into it, whether it be Glock, whether it be Sig, obviously we know with Sig, whether it be Smith & Wesson. I guarantee you this legal jargon, I guarantee you this legal wording is with all manufacturers because it's just legal wording. They're doing it to save their own ass. I don't know. I'm gonna let you guys make your own decision on this. Disclaimer, I'm not with Sig. I'm not affiliated with Sig in any way, shape, or form. I just think that Sig needs to own their fucking mistakes. If I go out tomorrow and make a product and it starts hurting people, making people sick, whatever, I'm fully responsible for that. I wouldn't be able to go to sleep at night knowing full well I changed somebody's life for the worse. And I'm just going to brush it off. It's a holster issue, or it's an ingredient issue, not my problem. Absolute fucking bullshit to me. This is a Sig problem. Fix your shit.